The storm rolled in without warning, soaking the glass walls of the Meridian, a rooftop restaurant perched above the glittering city. Inside, everything was gold. Gold chandeliers, gold-rimmed glasses, gold smiles that hid sharper edges. Elena Vargas moved between the tables with practiced grace, the weight of exhaustion hidden behind a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Her black apron was frayed at the edges, and her sneakers had lost their shine weeks ago, but her eyes, calm, dark, alert, missed nothing. She'd been here for 3 years, long enough to know every type of rich man, the ones who tipped to impress, the ones who didn't tip at all, and the ones who treated service workers like part of the furniture. Tonight, one of those men was sitting in the VIP section, the kind everyone else pretended not to watch but did. Hi, my beautiful family. Thank you for sticking around with me through our trying times. I really appreciate your love and support. We're finally back again to give you many more beautiful stories. If you're already hooked in for today's story and ready to enjoy it, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. Damien Locke. Billionaire. Venture capitalist. Media darling. Every news outlet called him the king of risk. But to Elena, as she balanced a tray of crystal glasses, he just looked like another man who'd never been told no. He sat at the head of the long marble table, surrounded by friends, men in tailored suits, their laughter too loud, their watches worth more than her rent for the year. Elena stopped beside them. "Good evening, gentlemen. What can I get started for you?" Damien didn't answer right away. He tilted his head, studying her with the same cool detachment one might give a chess piece. "What's your name?" he asked finally. "Elena." "Pretty name." He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. "Tell me, Elena, do you believe in luck?" The question caught her off guard. She blinked once, then set the water glasses down. "No, sir. I believe in rent being due." Laughter erupted from the table. One of his friends clapped. "I like her." But Damien's gaze sharpened. There was a glint of amusement, and something else. Challenge. "Then maybe you could use some luck," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Tell you what, I'll make you a bet." Elena hesitated. She'd heard this tone before, the careless edge of someone who knew they could buy the world and burn it too. "I don't gamble." "Then it's a good thing I do." He slid a crisp envelope from his jacket and laid it on the table. $10,000. Cash. Right here. Her stomach knotted. The men around him whistled, intrigued. "What's the catch?" she asked quietly. Damien's voice lowered, smooth as velvet. "Simple. You have to say yes to one question. A single question. That's all." Elena's fingers tightened around the tray. "What kind of question?" He smiled, slow and deliberate. "You'll see. Just say yes now." She could feel every pair of eyes on her. The dishwasher clattering in the back, the quiet music, even the rain outside, all of it blurred. $10,000, she repeated, trying to sound unimpressed. "For one question." He nodded. "You have my word." Her instincts screamed no. But her rent was late, and her brother's medical bills had just arrived. And beneath the humiliation brewing in her chest, there was something else, curiosity. She set the tray down. "Fine. I'll play your little game." Damien's grin widened. "Good." He leaned closer, his breath faintly scented with whiskey and power. "Here's the question." He whispered something in her ear. Her face went pale. For a long, still moment, she didn't move. The laughter around the table faded into silence. Then, slowly, Elena straightened, the tray trembling slightly in her hands. "You think that's funny?" she said softly. Damien leaned back, smirking. "It's just a game, sweetheart. Don't take it personally." But she did. Oh, she did. She turned and walked away, her step steady, her jaw tight. Behind her, the men started laughing again. Damien's voice rose above them all, smooth, self-satisfied, untouchable. At the bar, Elena stood in the shadow of the backlight, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. The bartender, a grizzled man named Ray, glanced up. "You okay?" She nodded, but her hands were shaking. "I just need a minute." Ray followed her gaze toward the VIP table. Him again, huh? What did he do this time? Elena's voice was quiet, cold. He made a bet. And? She stared at the envelope lying on the table, still untouched. And he's going to regret it. As the night wore on, Damien Locke laughed, drank, and forgot about the waitress with fire in her eyes. But Elena didn't forget. She went home drenched from the rain, pulled off her soaked shoes, and sat at her tiny kitchen table. In the flickering light, she opened her laptop. She typed his name, Damien Locke. Search results flooded the screen, articles, interviews, smiling photos. But beneath the polished surface, she saw patterns. Empty shell companies. A trail of lawsuits buried under NDAs. Rumors of people who'd gone broke, or disappeared, after crossing him. A storm brewed in her chest, colder and sharper than the one outside. If he wanted to play games, she would too. But hers would be smarter. Slower. Meaner. And by the time it ended, Damien Locke wouldn't just lose $10,000, he'd lose everything. If someone humiliated you publicly, would you walk away quietly, or would you plan your revenge in silence like Elena? Tell me in the comments. Morning sunlight filtered through the thin curtains of Elena's apartment, slicing across the mess of papers scattered across her kitchen table. She hadn't slept. Not really. The coffee had gone cold hours ago, but her mind burned with one thought, Damien Locke. The man had walked into her life like a storm, dropped a match, and walked away without looking back. Most people would have swallowed the humiliation and moved on. But Elena wasn't most people. She clicked another link. Another headline. Damien Locke expands his empire, buys out family-owned manufacturing plant in upstate New York. Dozens laid off after Locke Industries merger. Each article painted the same picture, a man who built empires from other people's ruins. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from her brother, Miguel. Morning, sis. Don't forget my appointment at noon. Love you. Elena closed her laptop and sighed. Miguel had been recovering from a spinal injury for nearly 2 years. The hospital bills were brutal. Every extra shift she picked up went straight to his care. That's why she couldn't afford to let some rich sociopath treat her like a punchline. She pulled her hair back into a ponytail and grabbed her jacket. Okay, she whispered to herself, locking the door behind her. Time to start playing smart. By noon, Elena was sitting in the cramped waiting room of Riverside Medical Center, flipping through a magazine she wasn't reading. Miguel sat beside her in his wheelchair, grinning like the world hadn't tried to break him. You look tired, he said. You always say that. Because it's always true. She smiled faintly. How's the pain today? Manageable, he said, then paused. Elena, what's wrong? You've got that look again. She hesitated. Just someone at work being an idiot. He raised an eyebrow. An idiot or that kind of idiot? The rich kind. Ah, the worst species. Elena chuckled, but her eyes stayed distant. Don't worry about it. I'll handle it. Miguel studied her for a moment. You're not planning anything, are you? Me, she said, feigning innocence. Never. But even as she said it, the plan was already forming. That night at the Meridian, Damien Locke returned. Elena knew he would. Men like him always did, drawn to their own reflection in the glass of expensive places. She saw him before he saw her, the same tailored suit, the same careless confidence. But this time, Elena was ready. She approached the table, calm, composed. Welcome back, Mr. Locke. Your usual. His smirk returned instantly. You remember. I remember everything, she said, voice even. He didn't notice the edge beneath her words. As she walked away, his friend, a lean, quiet man named Ethan Cross, leaned toward him. You shouldn't mess with staff, Damien. It's bad optics. Damien waved him off. Relax. It's harmless fun. But Ethan's gaze lingered on Elena's retreating figure. There was something about her, the way she didn't flinch, didn't shrink. It was as if she was waiting for something. Later that evening, Elena slipped a folded napkin onto Ethan's side of the table when she brought their dessert. His brow furrowed. He unfolded it discreetly beneath the table. Meet me on the terrace at closing. Alone. Ethan looked up, but she was already gone. The terrace was quiet when he arrived. Rain still clung to the glass railing, city lights shimmering in the puddles. Elena stood there in her black uniform, arms crossed, her reflection ghost-like in the window. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said without turning. Ethan shoved his hands in his pockets. "You're brave. Or reckless. Maybe both." He studied her. "What's this about?" "I need information," she said flatly. "About Damien Locke." Ethan laughed under his breath. "That's a dangerous subject." "I'm not scared of him." "You should be." Elena turned then, meeting his eyes. "Are you?" He didn't answer right away. The wind brushed his hair, and something flickered across his expression. Guilt, maybe. "I used to work for him," he said finally. "Before he got bigger. I know what he's capable of." "Then help me," Elena said. "You know how he plays his games. I just want to make him lose for once." Ethan exhaled slowly. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." He hesitated. "If you go after him, you'd better understand what you're stepping into. Damien Locke doesn't just destroy businesses, he destroys people." Elena's jaw tightened. "Then it's a good thing I've got nothing left to lose." Ethan looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "All right. But if we do this, we do it quietly." A small smile curved on Elena's lips. "Quiet's my specialty." That night, back in her apartment, Elena opened a new document on her laptop. At the top, she typed one name in bold letters. Project Locke. Then below it, she started a list. Research Locke Industries partners. Find financial weak points. Use his ego. Never play his game, make him play mine. She closed her laptop and leaned back, exhaustion pulling at her eyes. But for the first time in years, she felt awake, truly awake. Across the city, Damien Locke was entertaining investors in his penthouse, unaware that someone he'd barely noticed had just begun unmaking him. The waitress he'd humiliated for sport was about to become his greatest undoing. 3 days later, Elena stood behind the bar at the Meridian, polishing glasses and pretending not to watch as Damien Locke sat in his usual corner booth, surrounded by new company, an entourage of investors. He laughed like a man who thought the world was permanently on his side. Every movement was rehearsed, effortless. Every word a transaction. But tonight, something was different. Elena had slipped something into the conversation, quietly, strategically. A name. A rumor. A single thread that, when pulled, would begin to unravel everything. It started the night before, when Ethan Cross had come to her apartment with a flash drive. "This," he'd said, placing it on the table, "is everything you need to hurt him." She'd stared at it, a simple piece of metal that suddenly felt heavier than stone. What's on it? Internal emails. Transactions. Evidence he's been laundering investor money through fake charities. It's not enough to put him in prison, yet. But it's enough to start shaking the tower. Elena's pulse had quickened. "And you're just giving this to me?" Ethan's gaze had softened. "Let's just say I've been waiting for someone like you to come along." Now, in the glow of the bar, Elena smiled faintly as Damien's voice echoed across the restaurant. "You know what separates winners from losers," he was saying. "Winners bet on themselves. Losers wait for miracles." The men around him chuckled. He basked in it, oblivious. She leaned over to the man at the bar, one of the investors who had arrived early. A mild-mannered accountant type with an eager-to-please grin. "Refill?" she asked. He nodded. "Sure, thanks." As she poured, she spoke casually. "So, is it true what they're saying about Locke's charity fund?" He blinked. "What do you mean?" "Oh," she said innocently, "I just overheard something the other night, that some of the donations weren't going where they were supposed to. I'm sure it's nothing." The man frowned slightly, curiosity sparking. "Who told you that?" She shrugged. "Just gossip. Forget I said anything." But he wouldn't. She knew it. Men like him never forgot gossip that threatened their investments. It would take less than 24 hours for that seed of doubt to reach the right ears. Later that night, after the last guests had left and the staff began cleaning up, Elena stepped out onto the terrace. The city below shimmered, endless and indifferent. Ethan joined her, leaning against the railing. You planted it? She nodded. He won't feel it yet. But it's coming. He studied her profile. You're different when you talk about this. Colder. She turned her gaze toward the skyline. He took something from me. What did he take? She hesitated, then exhaled. Dignity. The one thing you can't buy back. The silence between them stretched, filled only by the hum of the city. Ethan finally said, "Be careful, Elena. Men like Locke don't get even, they get rid of problems." She gave him a faint smile. Then he'll never see me coming. By morning, the first ripple had formed. Damien's assistant entered his office, tablet in hand, her tone tight. There's been chatter about the charity fund. Some of the investors are asking for clarification. Damien barely looked up from his laptop. Chatter. An anonymous thread online, she continued. Someone's claiming Locke Industries redirected donations to offshore accounts. He laughed, sharp and dismissive. And people are buying that? Apparently, yes. His fingers froze over the keyboard. Handle it, he said curtly. And find out who started it. But even as he said it, a flicker of irritation crossed his mind. He wasn't used to being questioned, certainly not about money. At the Meridian that evening, Elena watched him again. He arrived alone this time. No entourage, no laughter. Just the faint shadow of frustration behind his eyes. When she approached the table, he looked up sharply. You, he said. You were there that night. I work here every night, she said smoothly. He studied her. You've got a sharp tongue, don't you? Only when provoked. A ghost of a smile touched his lips, but it didn't reach his eyes. You think I humiliated you, don't you? Elena tilted her head. Didn't you? He leaned forward. You could have taken the money. But you didn't. Why? Because dignity's worth more. For a brief second, something flickered across Damien's face. Confusion, maybe even guilt. But it was gone in an instant. Be careful, he said quietly. Pride has a price. So does cruelty, she replied. Their eyes locked, two predators studying each other across a battlefield disguised as a dinner table. When Elena returned to the bar, Ethan was waiting in a corner seat, pretending to scroll through his phone. Well, he asked under his breath. He's unsettled, she said. Good. The cracks are starting. Ethan glanced at her, admiration flickering behind his concern. You know, most people would have taken the money and walked away. I'm not most people. No, he said softly. You're not. Their eyes met, not romantic, not yet, but charged with something undeniable. A dangerous alliance was forming, one neither of them fully understood. 2 days later, Damien Locke's company stock dipped for the first time in months. Just a fraction of a percent, but enough to make headlines. Enough for investors to start whispering. Enough for Damien to start hunting. That night, Elena received a text from an unknown number. You're playing with fire, sweetheart. Careful not to burn yourself. Her pulse spiked. She didn't need to ask who it was. For the first time since she started this, fear crept in, sharp, real. But underneath it, something stronger burned. Resolve. She looked up at the skyline beyond her window and whispered, Then let's see who burns first. Rain streaked down the city windows again, heavy and relentless, like the universe was trying to wash something clean. But Elena Vargas had learned one thing. Some stains don't come off easily. It had been 2 weeks since she planted the first seed of doubt about Damien Locke. 2 weeks since the anonymous thread about his charity fund had gone viral, forcing him into damage control. And in those 2 weeks, something had shifted, not just in him, but in her. She was no longer the invisible waitress who smiled through insults. She was the storm quietly gathering over his empire. And Damien Locke was starting to feel the wind change. The cracks in the king. Inside his glass-walled office at Locke Industries, Damien slammed the newspaper down on his desk. Locke Industries faces allegations of misappropriated funds. CEO denies wrongdoing. The headline glared at him like an accusation. Across from him, his assistant tried to keep her tone even. We're handling the press inquiries, but investors are nervous. Especially after the fund withdrawal last week. Damien's jaw flexed. We've survived worse. Find whoever started that rumor. I want names." She hesitated. "Sir, it might have originated from inside the Meridian." His eyes narrowed. "The restaurant?" "Yes, sir. Someone overheard staff gossip. We traced the first post to a public Wi-Fi network across the street." A silence stretched, heavy and dangerous. Then Damien smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "Then maybe I'll pay the Meridian another visit." The trap tightens. Elena felt it before she saw him. That shift in the room, the hush that fell when Power walked in. She looked up from behind the bar and saw Damien Locke standing near the entrance, dressed in a black coat, raindrops clinging to his shoulders. Their eyes met across the room. For a heartbeat, neither looked away. "Great," muttered Ray, the bartender. "Your favorite customer's back." Elena set down the glass she was polishing. "Yeah, I noticed." She straightened her apron and walked toward him, every step measured. "Mr. Locke," she greeted, her voice steady. He smiled faintly. "Miss Vargas." She froze. He remembered her name. "I didn't think I made that much of an impression," she said carefully. "Oh, you did." His gaze was sharp, dissecting. "You strike me as the type who doesn't forget things." "Depends on the thing," she said. He leaned closer. "Then tell me, Elena, what is it you want from me?" The question hit like a blade wrapped in silk. She forced herself to meet his eyes. "I want my tips and peace of mind. Nothing more." "Peace of mind," he echoed softly. Interesting choice of words. Behind him, Ethan Cross appeared near the corner booth, pretending to check his phone. Their eyes met briefly, a silent signal. "Careful." Damien turned, his tone casual but his eyes cold. "You know, rumors are dangerous things. They tend to start small, but they can destroy lives." Elena's pulse quickened. "Is that a warning, Mr. Locke?" "A friendly one," he said. "You seem smart. Don't get caught in the crossfire." And with that, he turned and walked away, the faint scent of his cologne lingering like smoke after a fire. Ethan's secret. Later that night, after the restaurant closed, Elena and Ethan sat in the back storage room. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence between them. "He knows," she said finally. "He came here for me." Ethan rubbed his temples. "Then we need to move faster. He's not going to stop until he finds a name." Her eyes narrowed. "You sound like you've been here before." Ethan hesitated. "Because I have." He reached into his jacket and handed her a photo, a woman in her early 30s, smiling beside a younger Ethan. "That's Lydia. My sister." She was a whistleblower at one of Locke's partner firms. When she exposed him, her career vanished. Then she did too. Elena's breath caught. What happened to her? "No one knows," he said quietly. "Police called it suicide. I call it a message." She looked at the picture again, then at him. "So this isn't just about helping me." "No," he said. "This is about finishing what she started." A long silence followed. Then Elena nodded, her voice steady. "Then we finish it together." The digital ghost. The next morning, Elena sat in her apartment, eyes fixed on her laptop screen. Lines of data scrolled past as she used the files Ethan had given her. Offshore accounts. False names. Shell corporations. But one name stopped her cold. Crescent Holdings. A small company listed as a philanthropic partner on Locke Industries' website, and a supposed recipient of millions in donations. But when she traced the address, it led to an empty warehouse in Jersey City. Her heart pounded. This was it, proof that his charity was nothing but a front. But before she could save the file, a pop-up blinked across her screen. Access denied. Session terminated. The cursor froze. Her laptop shut down. A chill crept down her spine. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Told you to be careful, sweetheart." She slammed the phone down, panic flaring. How did he know? Was he watching her? She rushed to the window. The street below was empty except for the rain. But a dark sedan sat idling across from her building. Her pulse raced. She pulled the curtains shut, heart hammering. "Okay," she whispered to herself. "He wants a war. He's got one." The counter-move. The next night, Damien Locke was back in his penthouse, a fortress of glass overlooking the city. He poured himself a drink, the ice clinking softly. His assistant entered, nervous. "Sir, the IT team found a breach attempt from an external network. IP traces back to a personal laptop. Belongs to Elena Vargas." Damien's grip tightened on the glass. "So," he murmured, "our waitress has teeth." He set the glass down and walked to the window, the city lights reflecting in his eyes like stars he already owned. "Schedule a private investigator," he said quietly. "Discreet. I want everything, her address, family, history. If she's trying to ruin me, I want to know who's helping her." The quiet before the storm. Across the city, Elena sat on the floor beside her bed, staring at the flickering shadows on the wall. Ethan had left an hour ago, promising to secure new evidence. She held Miguel's photo in her hands. Her brother didn't know any of this. She couldn't tell him, not yet. If Damien found out about Miguel, he'd use him. Her mind replayed Damien's voice. "Peace of mind, don't get caught in the crossfire." She whispered into the darkness, "You should have never made that bet, Damien." Because now, the game wasn't about money. It was about survival. And the girl he'd once humiliated was about to become his biggest threat. The city was unnervingly still that night. No rain. No wind. Just silence, heavy, waiting. Elena Vargas sat alone in her apartment, the glow of her laptop washing her face in pale light. Lines of financial records sprawled across the screen, every number a clue, every pattern a whisper of the empire she was trying to dismantle. But something didn't fit. The files Ethan had given her were detailed, too detailed. Every transaction, every date. Almost too perfect. She leaned closer, frowning. Several files were time-stamped after Ethan had supposedly left Locke Industries. That shouldn't have been possible. Her stomach tightened. She picked up her phone and dialed Ethan's number. It went straight to voicemail. "Ethan, it's me. Call me back. Now." She hung up and sat there, pulse rising, staring at the frozen cursor on her screen. Outside, headlights flashed through her window. A car slowed to a stop. She moved to the curtain, her heart quickening. It wasn't the same dark sedan she'd seen before. This one was newer, sleek, familiar. Damien Locke stepped out. Her breath caught. He looked calm. Too calm. He wasn't here to talk. The uninvited guest. A knock echoed through her apartment. 1, 2, 3. Slow, deliberate. "Elena," came his voice, smooth and terrifyingly polite. "Open the door." She didn't move. "Elena," he repeated, softer this time. "We should clear the air, don't you think?" Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Don't open it." Her eyes widened. "Ethan." Another text followed. "He knows. Get out. Now." She grabbed her jacket, shoved her laptop into her bag, and bolted through the fire escape, heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Down the narrow alley, her sneakers splashed through puddles. Somewhere above, her apartment door creaked open. "Elena," Damien called out from inside, his voice carrying through the hall. "You really should have taken the money when you had the chance." She didn't look back. The betrayal. Elena didn't stop running until she reached the old riverfront warehouses, a stretch of the city she hadn't been near in years. She ducked inside one of the empty buildings, her breath ragged, her hands trembling. Her phone buzzed again. "Ethan." "Where are you?" he said when she answered. "Near the river. He came to my apartment." "Did he see you?" "I don't think so. But Ethan, those files you gave me. Some are dated after you left his company." A pause. "Then, I can explain." "Can you?" she snapped. "Because it sounds like you've been lying." He sighed. "Listen to me, Elena. I stayed in contact with one of his accountants. I didn't want to drag you into that part of it. The risk." She cut him off. "The risk? You mean the setup?" "Elena, no." The line went dead. She stared at her phone, the silence between the raindrops outside pressing in. Then she heard footsteps. The trap. A shadow appeared in the doorway. Running from someone? Her blood froze. Damien Locke stood there, his coat still wet, his expression unreadable. "How did you find you?" He smiled faintly. "You underestimate what money can buy." He stepped closer, slow, methodical. "You've been very busy, haven't you? Planting rumors, digging into things you don't understand." "Understanding isn't my problem," she said, backing away. "Conscience is yours." He laughed quietly. "You think you're some kind of avenger? You're just another angry nobody with a Wi-Fi connection." She swallowed hard, keeping her distance. "You humiliated me, Damien. In front of everyone. For fun." He shrugged. "I humiliate a lot of people. You were just there." The words cut deeper than she expected. He stepped closer. "Now you're going to tell me who's helping you. The ex-employee? The one with the guilt problem?" Elena forced a tight smile. "You'd have to catch me first." And then she did something Damien Locke didn't expect. She threw her bag at him. The laptop crashed against his chest, buying her a split second. She sprinted toward the back exit. "Elena!" His voice roared through the warehouse. She burst out into the rain, her breath burning in her lungs. Ethan's lie. She didn't stop running until she reached the next block. When she ducked into an alley, a car screeched to a stop in front of her. Ethan jumped out. "Get in." She hesitated. "How do I know you're not working with him?" He looked furious, hurt. "Because I just risked my life to get here before he did." She hesitated a heartbeat too long, but the headlights behind them made the choice for her. She climbed in. The car tore through the streets, rain hammering the windshield. "Elena," Ethan said between breaths, "there's something you need to know. The files, some of them weren't meant for you." "What does that mean?" He glanced at her. They were bait. Her stomach turned. Bait? For who? For anyone who tried to expose him. He's been tracking downloads for months. You weren't supposed to find those files. You were supposed to lead him to me. She stared at him, realization crashing down like thunder. "You used me." "No," he said quickly. "I swear, I thought I could protect you. But now he knows everything." The car sped down a dark underpass. Behind them, headlights appeared, 2 then 4. Damien's men. The ambush. Ethan. "I see them." He swerved sharply, tires screeching as the sedan behind them tried to cut them off. The city blurred past in streaks of gray and blue. A crash echoed as the pursuing car clipped their rear bumper. Elena grabbed the dashboard. "They're gaining." Ethan gritted his teeth. "Hold on." He turned hard into an alley and slammed the brakes. The car spun, tires screaming against the wet pavement. They came to a stop just as the other vehicle overshot the turn and slammed into a lamppost. For a moment, there was only the hiss of rain. Ethan exhaled. "You okay?" Elena nodded weakly. "You sure you're not working with him?" He looked at her, eyes burning with sincerity. "Not anymore." The revelation. Back in his penthouse, Damien Locke watched the city lights through a wall of glass. His assistant entered quietly. "Sir, we lost them." He didn't turn around. "Of course you did." She hesitated. "What now?" He smiled faintly. "Now? We let her think she's winning. It makes the fall more satisfying." He raised a glass of scotch, his reflection staring back at him. "Let her keep digging," he murmured. "Because when she finds what she's looking for, she'll wish she hadn't." Meanwhile, Elena sat in Ethan's car, staring out at the storm. "What did he mean by bait?" she asked finally. Ethan hesitated. "There's something buried deeper. Something we haven't found yet." She turned to him slowly. "Then we find it first." Outside, thunder rumbled across the skyline. Neither of them noticed the black SUV parked 2 blocks away, its headlights dimmed, its driver speaking softly into a phone. "She took the drive," the voice said. "What now?" Damien Locke's voice came through the speaker, cold and patient. "Now," he said, "we let her think she's already won." The rain returned with vengeance. It came down in sheets, drumming against the windshield of Ethan's car as it idled near the edge of the industrial district. The glow from the dashboard cast pale blue light across Elena's face. Her hair was plastered to her cheeks, her hands shaking as she clutched the flash drive like a lifeline. For the first time since this began, she felt fear, not anger, not righteous defiance, but pure fear. "Ethan," she whispered, staring out at the rain, "what if we're already too late?" He glanced over. "You can't think like that. We still have leverage." Her laugh was hollow. "Leverage? Damien Locke knows where I live. He's probably watching us right now." Ethan reached for her hand. "We'll disappear for a few days. Regroup. Find someone who'll publish the evidence." She pulled her hand away. Evidence that might not even be real. He hesitated. "What are you talking about?" "The files," she said bitterly. "You said they came from an accountant, but what if that was a lie too? What if he gave them to you to lead us here?" Ethan's eyes flickered. For a split second, guilt crossed his face, barely there but enough. She turned toward him slowly. "What aren't you telling me?" "Elena," he began, voice low, hesitant. "It wasn't supposed to go this far." Her stomach dropped. "What?" Damien, offered me money," Ethan admitted quietly. "Months ago. To find out who'd been leaking information from his old networks. I didn't know it would be you." Her chest constricted. "So you were working for him?" "Not anymore," he said quickly. "Once I realized what he planned to do, how he ruins people, I switched sides. I wanted to make it right." Elena's voice shook with fury. "You used me. I tried to protect you. You made me his target." The car went silent except for the rain hammering the roof. Finally, she whispered, "Get out." "Elon." "Get out." Ethan opened his mouth, closed it again, and stepped out into the storm. She watched him disappear into the rain, her throat tight, her heart breaking, not because she loved him, but because she trusted him. And now she had no one. The collapse. The next morning, the Meridian was chaos. Elena entered through the back door, drenched and sleepless, only to find her manager waiting with a letter in hand. "Elena," he said softly, "you need to leave." "What? Why?" He sighed, glancing toward the dining room where two men in suits were speaking to staff. "Locke's people came this morning. They showed the owner surveillance footage of you sneaking out of his private event. Said you stole something." "That's not true," she protested. He nodded, but his eyes were sad. "I know, but they don't care. You're officially banned from the premises." She stared at him, stunned. "You're firing me over him?" He looked down. "You need to go before they come back." For a long moment, Elena didn't move. Then she turned, dropped her apron on the counter, and walked out without another word. Outside, the rain hit her like needles. She stood there in the street, her life unraveling in real time. No job. No safety. No plan. Just her and the flash drive, the last piece of proof she couldn't even trust anymore. The fall. By afternoon, her phone buzzed again. "Unknown number. You played your part well, sweetheart. Now watch how the story ends." Her stomach knotted. She tried to call Ethan, no answer. When she turned on her laptop, the screen blinked once, then filled with static. And then, like a specter, Damien's face appeared in a video feed, smiling calm. "Hello, Elena," he said. "You've caused me quite a bit of trouble." "Impressive, really." Her throat tightened. "How did you get into my computer?" He chuckled. "I own the people who built it." "What do you want?" "I want to end this little game." He leaned closer to the camera, his eyes cold and unblinking. "You could have taken the 10,000 and walked away. But you decided to make this personal." "It was personal," she hissed. "You humiliated me. And you think ruining me will make you whole again?" She didn't answer. He smiled faintly. "You have something that belongs to me. The flash drive. Bring it to the Meridian rooftop tonight. Alone. If you don't," his expression darkened, "I can't promise your brother's safety." Her blood went cold. "How do you?" "I know everything about you," he said softly. "Miguel. Riverside Medical Center. The debt collectors. You see, Elena, revenge is fun, until it hits home. The screen went black. The lowest point. She sat there in the silence that followed, her whole body shaking. Miguel. She pulled out her phone and called him, her voice trembling. Are you okay? Did anyone? I'm fine, he said slowly. Why? What's wrong? Stay inside, she said quickly. Lock the doors. Don't open them for anyone, okay? Elena, you're scaring me. Please, Miguel. Just do it. She hung up before he could say more. Tears blurred her vision. For all her planning, for all her cleverness, Damien had outplayed her. He'd taken her dignity, her job, her safety, and now he was threatening the only person she loved. For the first time in weeks, Elena felt powerless. She dropped to her knees, gripping the flash drive in both hands, the rain pounding against the windows like laughter. Maybe he's right, she whispered to herself. Maybe I can't win. But then her phone vibrated again. A message. Unknown number. If you're still alive, meet me at the old pier in 1 hour. It wasn't Damien. It was Ethan. The whisper of hope. Elena stared at the message. Every instinct screamed, don't go. But if there was even a chance, if Ethan had information that could save Miguel, she had no choice. She wiped her face, stood up, and slipped the flash drive into her pocket. The storm outside had quieted, but the city still felt electric, charged with danger. As she stepped into the night, she whispered to herself, You wanted a game, Damien? Let's finish it. That night, under a bruised purple sky, Elena walked toward the pier, unaware that what waited there would change everything again. The pier was nearly deserted. The rain had finally stopped, leaving behind a sheen of silver on the cracked wooden boards. The sea below churned in quiet anger, dark and endless. The wind carried the faint hum of the city lights in the distance, a world that kept moving while Elena stood still. She tightened her coat and scanned the shadows. Ethan. Her voice echoed against the water. No answer. Only the sound of waves slapping against the pilings and the faint creak of a loose chain. She was about to turn back when a figure stepped out from behind a rusted cargo container. It was Ethan, soaked, pale, and visibly trembling. You came, he said softly. Tell me this isn't another setup, she replied, her tone sharp. He shook his head. I screwed up, Elena. I didn't realize how far he'd go. But I found something Locke doesn't know I took. Her eyes narrowed. What is it? Ethan reached into his coat and handed her a small notebook, leather-bound and worn. It's his ledger. His real one. Every offshore account, every payment, every blackmail fund. She hesitated before taking it. How do I know this isn't another trick? He looked her dead in the eye. Because I've got nothing left to lose. The spark of truth. Elena flipped through the pages, her hands trembling. Every line, every coded note, it was all there. Bribes to city officials. Payouts to silence victims. Fake charities. Even payments to journalists to bury stories. And then she saw it, her name. E. Vargas, $10,000, Meridian, bet payout, confirmed. Her stomach twisted. He recorded the bet. Ethan nodded grimly. He records everything. Keeps trophies of his power trips. She traced the letters of her own name. This isn't just evidence. It's his confession. Ethan nodded. We can expose him, but we need help. Someone credible. Someone who can make this go public before he can bury us. Elena closed the ledger slowly. Her reflection stared back at her in the slick pages, tired, angry, but burning with something new. Resolve. She took a deep breath. No. Not we. Me. Ethan frowned. What are you talking about? He ruined my life, Ethan. He wants me to be the girl who cowers, who hides. I'm done running. Elena, that's suicide. Maybe, she said quietly. But it's my choice this time. The voice of clarity. They sat in silence for a moment, the sea whispering against the pier. You know, she said softly, when he offered me that money, that stupid bet, I laughed about it later. Told myself I didn't care. But I did. I let him decide my worth in front of everyone. I let him win. Ethan looked at her with quiet guilt. But not anymore, she continued. He thinks humiliation breaks people. He doesn't understand it can also forge them. She stood, clutching the ledger. I'm going to make him feel what I felt. Not with guns or threats, with the truth. Ethan rose. If you're going to do this, you'll need to be smart. He's got half the media in his pocket. She nodded. Then I'll find the half he doesn't. The clue. As they left the pier, Elena noticed something tucked inside the ledger's back cover, a folded receipt. It was dated 3 days earlier. Locke Foundation, donation, $1 million, recipient, Brighton Women's Shelter. Her eyes widened. Brighton. Her old neighborhood. The same shelter she'd volunteered at as a teen. That's not charity, Ethan said, glancing over her shoulder. That's a cover. Elena's mind raced. What if he's laundering money through non-profits? If we can prove it. It's over, Ethan finished. She nodded. We'll start there. The return. The next morning, Elena walked into Brighton's shelter like a ghost returning home. The place smelled of disinfectant and cheap coffee. The same faded posters about hope and survival still hung on the walls. An older woman behind the desk looked up, Mrs. Calder, the shelter's longtime director. Elena? My goodness, it's been years. Elena smiled faintly. Hey, Mrs. C. You got a minute? Mrs. Calder hesitated, sensing the tension in her voice. Of course. What's wrong? Elena handed her the ledger page. Do you recognize that account? The woman adjusted her glasses. Her expression shifted from confusion to fear. Where did you get this? Just tell me if it's real. Mrs. Calder lowered her voice. That's not the shelter's account. We've never received anything close to that amount. But 2 weeks ago, a man came asking to inspect our records. Said he was from the Locke Foundation. Elena's pulse quickened. What did he look like? Tall. Expensive suit. Scar under his eye. Ethan's voice dropped. That's one of Locke's enforcers. Elena's eyes hardened. He's been using charity funds to clean his money. Perfect. Mrs. Calder reached for her hand. Whatever you're doing, dear, be careful. Men like him don't lose quietly. Elena smiled grimly. He's about to learn how loud I can be. The plan. Back at Ethan's apartment, they laid everything out, the ledger, the forged charity documents, the hidden accounts. Ethan paced. We'll leak this to the independent press. There's one outlet Locke can't control, the Arc Journal. They've been chasing him for years. Elena nodded. Then that's where it goes. She picked up the flash drive again, her mind spinning. You know what's funny? He gave me this as bait. But this time, I'm the one setting the trap. Ethan smirked faintly. You're going to bait him? Oh, I'll do more than that, she said. I'll make him think he's already won. The shift. For the first time since the nightmare began, Elena wasn't the hunted anymore. She was the strategist. Every humiliation, every cruel word, every sleepless night, it all crystallized into clarity. Damien Locke's greatest weakness wasn't his ego or his greed. It was his certainty. The belief that no one beneath him could ever fight back. That was about to change. Have you ever been underestimated by someone who thought they had power over you? What did it feel like when you finally stood up? Drop your story in the comments. Someone out there needs to hear how you turned pain into power. The rain had stopped, but the city still shimmered like glass. Streets slick with reflections, sky heavy with a bruised purple haze. Inside the Meridian, the same place where it all began, the world of polished marble and quiet luxury was preparing for another gala. Cameras, champagne, laughter, all the symbols of power carefully arranged to hide the rot beneath. And standing at the edge of it all, unseen behind the service entrance, was Elena Vargas. Her eyes burned with focus. No fear now. Only intent. In her jacket pocket, a recording device hummed quietly. In her bag, a laptop, preloaded with the files, the ledger scans, the falsified donations. And on her wrist, a small earpiece connecting her to Ethan, stationed in a van outside, ready to broadcast everything live. She looked at the grand ballroom through the narrow crack in the door. There he was. Damien Locke. Perfect suit. Perfect smile. surrounded by the city's elite, journalists, and investors. The king of the room. And tonight, he was going to choke on his own throne. Setting the trap. Ethan's voice came through the earpiece. You're live in 60 seconds. Once you plug in the drive, it'll push the files to every major news feed. Elena exhaled slowly. Copy that. She waited for her moment. A waiter passed by, balancing a tray of champagne. She slipped in behind him, blending seamlessly into the rhythm of the room. Her reflection flickered in the mirrored walls, not the timid waitress who once took orders here, but something colder, sharper. As she crossed the floor, Damien Locke raised his glass, addressing the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, voice smooth as velvet. Tonight, we celebrate not just wealth, but vision, the kind of vision that builds cities and changes lives. Elena almost laughed. Changes lives. He destroyed mine. She approached the far side of the stage, crouched behind a curtain, and plugged the flash drive into the media console. A soft beep confirmed the upload. Ethan's voice, transmission ready. On your word. Elena stared at the back of Damien's head, at the man who'd mocked her, toyed with her, erased her. Send it, she whispered. The unraveling. The big screen behind Damien flickered. At first, the crowd thought it was a glitch, a static blur over the logo of Locke Industries. But then the image shifted. Numbers. Spreadsheets. Offshore accounts. Gasps rippled through the room. What the hell? Damien's voice faltered as he turned toward the screen. The feed continued. A video appeared next, Damien laughing, holding a glass of wine. A hidden camera recording from his own office. Humiliation is the best motivator, his voice said on screen. People are like puppets. You pull one string, they'll dance for you forever. The crowd went silent. Elena stepped from behind the curtain. Her voice rang out, steady and clear. Funny, I don't feel like dancing anymore. Every head turned. Cameras swung toward her. Damien's face went pale. Elena, he said, regaining composure. Security. No need, she interrupted, holding up her phone. Because the whole city's already watching. The showdown. Damien tried to smile. I see you've been busy. But hacking corporate data is a felony. You've just incriminated yourself. Elena took a slow step forward. Maybe. But that video. She pointed to the screen, where his voice continued, bragging about payoffs and control. That's your confession. Murmurs swelled in the room. Reporters raised phones. Cameras flashed. Damien's smile twitched. Do you think anyone will believe a waitress over me? She tilted her head. I think they'll believe your voice. Especially when they see your signatures on every payment. He lunged toward her, but she didn't flinch. Ethan's voice cut through her earpiece. He's cornered. Keep him talking. Elena stood her ground. You offered me $10,000 to humiliate me. You thought I was just another piece of entertainment. But here's the thing, Damien. When you spend your life stepping on people, eventually one of them gets strong enough to stand up. Damien's eyes narrowed. You think you've won? She smiled faintly. No. I know I have. The collapse of a titan. Suddenly, security rushed in, not toward her but toward him. A voice echoed from the ballroom entrance. Damien Locke, you're under arrest for fraud, bribery, and corporate embezzlement. The crowd gasped. Cameras clicked furiously. Elena turned to see two federal agents step forward, flashing IDs. How? Damien stammered. Ethan's voice in her ear. The ARC Journal went live 5 minutes ago. The FBI got the leak. They moved fast. Damien's composure cracked. You think this ends me? You think you can just erase Damien Locke? Elena stepped closer, her voice low and razor-sharp. No, Damien. I didn't erase you. I just turned the spotlight around. The agents seized him. As they led him past her, he stopped, eyes burning with disbelief and fury. You'll regret this, he hissed. She met his gaze calmly. Funny. That's what you said the night you offered me $10,000. And look how that turned out. The power of silence. As the ballroom descended into chaos, reporters shouting, security scrambling, Elena walked out through the same service door she'd once entered as a nobody. Outside, the night air hit her like a baptism. Ethan's van pulled up beside her. The door opened. "It worked," he said, breathless. "Every outlet's running it. He's finished." Elena stared at the city lights in the distance, the same skyline Damien once owned with his money and fear. Now it was hers. Not in power, but in truth. She turned to Ethan. "You said he kept trophies of his power trips." "Yeah." "Well," she said softly, "I just became his last one." The morning after the storm, sunlight finally broke over the city, clean, golden, and unfamiliar. For the first time in months, Elena Vargas woke up without dread. Her phone buzzed endlessly with notifications, news headlines, emails, messages from people she hadn't heard from in years. But she didn't need to read them to know. She'd already won. On every major network, Damien Locke's face filled the screen, the once untouchable billionaire now in handcuffs, escorted from his own gala as cameras captured his downfall. Every word of his arrogance, every fraud, every dollar he'd stolen, public. Irrefutable. Final. And with that, the story that began with humiliation ended with truth. A quiet morning. Elena poured herself a cup of coffee and stepped out onto the balcony. Below her, the city moved with its usual rhythm, taxis honking, pedestrians rushing, the pulse of normal life returning. But for her, everything felt slower, lighter. She glanced down at the newspaper folded on the table. Locke Industries collapses in fraud scandal. Whistleblower remains anonymous. She smiled faintly. She hadn't wanted fame, just peace. Ethan stepped onto the balcony, 2 steaming cups in hand. His arm was bandaged from the chaos of the night before, but his expression carried relief. "You did it," he said quietly. She shook her head. "We did it." He chuckled softly. "You know, I still can't believe you faced him like that. The whole city watching." Elena sipped her coffee. "I didn't do it for the city. I did it for every person he ever made feel small." Tying the threads. Later that day, she visited her brother Miguel at the hospital. He was sitting up, reading from his phone. "You're trending, you know that," he said, grinning. She laughed. "Please tell me it's for the right reasons." "Oh yeah. Hashtags and everything. Hashtag the waitress who won. You're kind of a legend." She rolled her eyes, smiling. "I don't want to be a legend. I just want us to be safe." "You are," he said softly. "You made sure of it." Elena hugged him, breathing in the comfort she'd almost lost. "No more running," she whispered. "No more hiding." He nodded. "So what now?" She thought about it for a moment. "Now, I start over. My way." A visit. A week later, Elena returned to the Meridian, not as staff, not as prey, but as someone with purpose. The restaurant had changed, quieter, humbler. The scandal had emptied its elite clientele. Her old manager looked up in shock as she entered. "Elena. I didn't expect." She smiled gently. "It's okay. I'm not here to make a scene." He hesitated. "Everyone heard what happened. You took down Damien Locke." Elena's gaze drifted around the restaurant, over the marble floors where she'd once been humiliated. "I didn't take him down. He did that to himself. I just made sure people were watching." He exhaled, a smile of relief crossing his face. "You deserve a fresh start." "I already have one," she said softly, handing him a folded envelope. "This is for the staff who had to deal with his fallout. Consider it closure." Then she turned and walked out, sunlight spilling across the threshold as the door closed behind her. The foundation. 3 months later, Elena sat at a small press conference in a modest community hall, not a ballroom, not a stage built for the powerful. The banner behind her read, "The Vargas Initiative, protecting whistleblowers and survivors of corporate abuse." Cameras clicked, but this time they didn't intimidate her. She spoke clearly, her tone steady and warm. "I'm not here because I wanted revenge," she said. "I'm here because humiliation should never be entertainment. Power should never excuse cruelty. And truth, no matter how dangerous, deserves a voice." Applause filled the room. Ethan, standing quietly at the back, smiled. Damien's regret. Meanwhile, inside a coal detention facility 2 hours outside the city, Damien Locke sat in a bare cell. The man who once commanded rooms with a single glance now stared at the floor, his reflection warped in the metal table. A guard entered, sliding a stack of letters across to him. "Fan mail," the guard said dryly. "Or hate mail. Hard to tell these days." Damien didn't respond. He flipped one envelope open out of habit. Inside was a single printed photo, the moment from the gala when Elena stood on the stage, head high, light on her face, truth spilling across the screen behind her. At the bottom, a handwritten note in familiar penmanship. "You offered me $10,000 to make me feel small. I spent nothing to make you see how small you really were. E.V." Damien stared at the words for a long time. Then he laughed, hollow, broken, the sound of a man who finally understood the meaning of loss. Healing. That evening, Elena stood by the waterfront where it had all begun, the same pier, now quiet, the air calm. Ethan joined her, hands in his pockets. "Funny," he said. "You said once you'd never come back here." She smiled faintly. "I guess I had to rewrite the ending." They stood in silence, watching the waves roll in. "You ever regret it?" he asked softly. "Starting all this?" Elena thought for a moment. "No. Not anymore. You can't regret the truth." She turned to face him. He thought he could buy dignity with money. But dignity isn't something you give, it's something you take back. If someone offered you money to test your dignity, would you take it, or would you stand your ground? Share what you would do. Your words might be the reminder someone needs not to sell their self-worth for anyone's game. As night fell, Elena walked away from the pier, not as a waitress, not as a victim, but as a survivor turned voice for others. The city lights flickered behind her, reflected in the calm water. In her hand, she held the old flash drive, the same one that started everything. She looked at it one last time, then threw it into the sea. It vanished beneath the waves with a soft splash, a sound of finality, of release. And for the first time in forever, she smiled. The bet was over. The lesson remained. The end.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed the story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.